It's a special edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast today as we're joined by Jon Chik from Locked On Rangers to discuss their hot start and more right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Ranger fans, Penguin fans, like I said, a very special crossover edition here for you guys today. This is Jon Chik with Locked On New York Rangers, joined by my good friends Hunter Hodes and Patrick Damp of Locked On Pittsburgh Penguins. And fellas, we were talking off air just for a minute there, and obviously big time, heated rivalry between these two teams. It's been going on really for years now. The players come and go, but the bad blood always seems to be there. And round one so far this season, and as a Ranger fan, watching the Penguins or kind of keeping an eye on them throughout October, obviously they scuffled a little bit then, but they've clearly picked it up in November. So in your guys' estimation, what are they doing better? Is there a certain player that stepped up or just a certain area of the game where they've improved? Just what's been the key to this turnaround here?
First off, it's a lot of it has been the play of Sidney Crosby. He continues to turn back the clock to looking like the 22, 23-year-old of so many years ago, leads the league in 5-on-5 scoring. He's, I think, been the main reason why they've really turned this around. Erik Karlsson has been tremendous over these last several games. Continues to show why he won the Norris last year. But also, it's been the Penguins' really strong commitment to team defense in the defensive zone. Mike Sullivan has tweaked a couple of things with the system. They're not playing as aggressive. They're taking away the neutral zone. They're keeping teams to the outside. And it's led to this team having 5 shutouts in their first 17 games. They only had 2 shutouts all last year. The commitment to team defense has been really strong as of late this month. And I think that's outside of the individual players, Crosby, Karlsson, we can put up Kenny Malkin in there, Riley Smith. Outside of those players and a few others, that I think has been the main reason for this turnaround. It's the Penguins' really just strong commitment to team defense.
For me, it comes all the way back to coaching, because to build off of what Hunter was saying, there was a lot of talk in Pittsburgh and on our show specifically about how, as talented as this Penguins team is, they are the oldest team in the National Hockey League. Couple that with the rest of the league kind of getting on board with this trend of being fast, playing aggressive, and focusing on speed. The rest of the league caught up to the Penguins. So their idea and system of always being aggressive in all 3 zones kind of was starting to haunt them early in the season. So with Mike Sullivan making that adjustment to pulling the pressure back and keeping teams in front of them, as he likes to say, for me has been huge for this team's turnaround, simply because instead of chasing a game that they played well 5-6 years ago, they're playing to the strengths they have today. So we all know, Penguins and Rangers fans know all too well about coaches who will go down with their system no matter what. So it's nice to see that Sullivan was able to say, okay, we aren't that team anymore, so let's switch some things up here so we can find some success.
Absolutely. And, you guys both kind of touch on Erik Karlsson a little bit there. And obviously, you look back at the offseason and that was one of the bigger, transactions, not just for the Penguins, but really for any team across the entire NHL. There was kind of that staring contest between the Penguins and Sharks. Felt like it went on forever. But I think the general consensus is that it was always eventually going to get done. And it got done. And Karlsson's here. And kind of the same thing with the Penguins as a whole. Erik Karlsson maybe scuffled a little bit to start the season, but he's picked it up recently. 17 points in 17 games and a +10 so far for Karlsson. So what's been the key? Is it just kind of a situation where he had to get used to his new teammates, his new surroundings, new system, the whole 9 yards?
I know. Yeah. Go ahead, Pat. I think.
Yeah. I mean, that and he's, I don't want to this is going to sound silly to say, but he's somebody you have to get used to playing with, because it's kind of the opposite of Sidney Crosby, where he can kind of just take whomever and make them work. Karlsson, because he plays from the back end, is so creative and so one step ahead of everything that you could see it early on. He'd make passes to wingers and forwards, and they were genuinely surprised that pass was there. It wasn't, say, like with a Sidney Crosby, where he basically just says, go to the net with your stick down and I'll find you there somehow, some way. With Erik Karlsson, you're coming through the neutral zone and there's a quagmire of bodies between him and the next guy, and he somehow fits a puck all the way across, and the forward's just not ready for it, nor would he ever be, because you don't expect that pass. So once the team kind of started adjusting to the way he plays, you could see the production and the fit really start to work.
Yeah, just going off what Pat said, I mean, he's made passes this year that, I mean, I love Crystal Tang, but I haven't seen Crystal Tang make some of those passes in quite a while. And his acquisition, Karlsson, that is, it's really helped Letang just really, I mean, it takes some of the responsibilities off him just because he's had to do so much throughout these last several years, and you can split them up, their minutes up. And it's been really great to see him grow into his role with the Penguins. He's had multiple games where he lets his cannon of a slap shot loose, and it's a sight for sore eyes. Him with Evgeny Malkin, their chemistry, I think, is really starting to grow over the last week or two. And that's something I think to keep an eye on for this game against the Rangers, when whatever Peter Laviolette, whoever he wants to match up against those two when they're out there, because they've been getting a lot more minutes together. That's going to be interesting for me as well. But, you know, the Penguins pulled off a heist to get him. They didn't really give up anything of value to get one of the best defensemen on the planet. And so far, so good with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that kind of comes up, I think it's come up for both these teams in the past. And I mean, really, it's one of those things that you can probably apply it to just about any team in the NHL. But certain teams, you know, the feeling from the fan base a lot of times is that they don't have enough depth, or to kind of piggyback off of that, they don't have enough scoring depth. And I think for the Penguins, certainly last year, that was maybe a knock on them, and maybe one of the reasons why they weren't able to continue that very impressive playoff streak that they've had over the years. But do you think, I mean, Karlsson's obvious, but beyond him, like, is there a better supporting cast now than maybe there was the past couple of seasons?
I would say the bottom six this season is a bit better compared to last season, but it's still a work in progress. I feel like Pat and I have been complaining about the bottom six quite often this season, but the third line, for the most part, has improved ever since Radim Zohorna came up for Jansen Harkins. Zohorna has been just a blessing for that third line, honestly. I think Lars Eller has also really fine-tuned his game a little bit. He's finally starting to show why he was signed this offseason. I think Drew O'Connor is starting to grow a bit more as of late. That line is getting a bit better. Fourth line, you subbed out Jeff Carter. We'll have to see what happens. They're practicing today. Vinny Hinostroza is on the ice for practice. We'll have to see if he's ready to go for that game against the Rangers. But if not, Carter will be in the lineup. Fourth line, you know, still needs at least a little bit of work. Noah Chari finally got his first goal against the Golden Knights. Matt Nieto had one before against the Sharks. I'm still not seeing enough depth scoring from them, but there's still time to fix that. You know, there's plenty of months before the trade deadline. I still think they're another scorer short, but overall as a whole, I do think this bottom six is a bit better compared to last year. It's just still a little bit of a work in progress. I just don't want to see the team have to rely on the top six every night. And, you know, speaking of that, they didn't have to on Sunday night against Vegas, when the bottom six really carried the way for one of the first times this season. And I hope that continues.
The thing that's nice is that the big guns are going right now. Yes. All the top guys are producing, and that gives you some leeway for this bottom six, as it is a work in progress, to find its footing. And they're starting to find said footing. Like Hunter said, they were the drivers on Sunday against the defending champions, which is something you want to see. Even though Vegas was on the second half of a back-to-back, that's still a very good hockey team, and they played the Penguins top six to a draw, and then the Penguins bottom six made the difference. But I would say it wasn't hard to get this team a better bottom six than last year. It would have been genuinely scary if it was worse, but they brought in some better pieces. They're starting to fit, and they're starting to find some chemistry. So you have that in the month of November, a little bit of leeway, because the top six and the main contributors are doing their best. So it gives them some room to get better, but hopefully, you know, when the inevitable days come where these slumps hit, you got to hope these guys can finally start chipping in a few goals and points to supplant the top guys when they inevitably go cold.
Yeah, for sure. And I figure we'll keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to talk about some of the matchups in this game in particular. Probably going to get Igor versus Jarry, so that's always a very good matchup. And obviously both of them off to good starts this season. Igor back from an injury recently. But first, guys, would you like to let everybody know about one of our sponsors, Gametime?
Yeah, Gametime, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. It's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know what you're getting. A great deal without the hidden fees. Also, you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. All you got to do, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, and we also just want to mention that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And all of us would just like to thank you, as always, loyal Locked On listeners, the everydayers, for making both shows your first listens every day. Both shows are free and available on every platform, including YouTube. And to just kind of keep everything rolling here, I mean, obviously, Tristan Jarry back with the Penguins, signs the big extension in the offseason, off to a really nice start this season. Kind of a heavyweight matchup between him and Igor Shesterkin for this game. And Hunter, I remember we talked about this a while back on one of our crossover episodes. Seemed like Penguin fans were a little bit split on Jarry, like extend him or, don't pay him the big bucks. And, he gets a pretty sizable raise, and obviously they're going to be keeping him around. So, I mean, how's everybody feeling now? Like, is this your guy, or is there still a little bit of trepidation, or just your thoughts on Jarry and him going forward?
Depends on who you ask when it comes to Tristan Jarry. You don't really know what you're going to get with him, I think, on any given night. You could get the version where you've seen him have multiple shutouts this season and he plays aggressive, makes some really nice sprawling saves, or you may get the version of him that we just saw against the Devils where he was off his angles, letting in a couple soft goals, just wasn't there. And the inconsistency with him has been my biggest gripe on him this year. You need to be consistent, especially after you got a 5-year term and you're making over $5 million per year. Pat and I have said that on our show. We want the $5 million man to play like a $5 million man. And at times he has done that. But at other times, as I just said, he hasn't. We just want him to just do this on a consistent basis. You can't just have, a shutout on one start and then you're giving up 4 goals and having an .850 save percentage on the next one. You can't just go back and forth between that. You need to have string together 4 to 5 to 6 really quality starts. And then if you have a howler of a game after that, okay, that happens to any goalie in the league. But it's just been too common with him to have a really good start followed up by a really bad start. And I do agree. I think he's going to get the start in this one, even though Alex Nedeljkovic came back on Sunday, played a really good game against Vegas. I still don't think there's a goalie controversy in this city. I think Nedeljkovic should get more starts going forward, but I don't think he's going to suddenly be the number one goalie. I think Jarry will get the start, but he's just got to find that consistency. He's been fully healthy for this season, knock on wood, at least. But he's just got to continue to, well, I shouldn't even say continue. He's just got to start being more consistent, I think.
Yeah, the wild swings are a huge concern because there are nights where he looks like he could be in the conversation for the Vezina, and then there are nights where it looks like he's below replacement level and should be in the American Hockey League. And I say this all the time on the show to Hunter. I've said it in writing. I've said it everywhere I've ever covered the Penguins. When you're a Pittsburgh Penguins goaltender, you don't need to be a Vezina candidate. You just have to be good enough. You just have to be an NHL average goalie because the Penguins brand has and always will be scoring. That's what they do. And you don't need your goalie back there stealing games. So that's all I've really asked of him. And it's been an incomplete grade that kind of doesn't look great so far. And you look at the shutouts and you think, oh, he's got 3 shutouts. He's got to be doing great this year. And Well, you look at his non-shutout games with the exception of one or two of them, and it's a tough look. I also, this summer for goaltending was tough because there really wasn't anything out there. There wasn't really any good free agents. And we saw with Winnipeg when they eventually traded PLD to LA, you were not going to get Connor Hellebuck out of there for anything more than a huge ransom. So for the Penguins, they kind of had no real option. I wish they hadn't gone 5 years, but $5 million was kind of about the going rate this summer for a starting goalie. So I don't like that they gave him 5 years, but I understand why they gave him the money they did.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Hellebuck because this whole offseason, I mean, obviously the Rangers are set in net. We know that. But, two teams in this Metro division that maybe we're looking for an upgrade in the crease. I thought maybe either the Penguins or maybe even the Devils might make a play for Connor Hellebuck. So when I saw that, he inked that extension with the Jets, I was pretty happy about that. Keep him out west and keep him out of the Metro division. Thank you very much. But, I think and to build on that, I think it's going to be Igor in net for the Rangers for this game as well. Obviously, he missed a little bit of time with the injury. And, he's come back, kind of mixed results in the 2 games since he's been back. But obviously, got to shake off the rust going up against 2 pretty high-powered opponents in the Devils and the Stars on the road. He made some really awesome saves against the Devils, particularly when the Rangers were down 3-2 in that game. So that really allowed them to come back and not have too big of a hole to try to climb out of. He's got this weird thing, Igor, right now, where this has happened 3 times in 2 games where it seems like he's got the puck frozen and then all of a sudden it just kind of like falls to the ice and the opponents are knocking the puck into the net. And I think it's just one of those things that you can chalk it up as a fluke. But Igor, he's been all right since coming back, but he hasn't, had his A game yet. So if you're a Penguins fan, maybe this is the right time to play the Rangers, or maybe he is Igor and does have his A game in this game against the Penguins. We'll wait and see what happens there.
Which would be nice if we get, because you look at his splits against the Penguins, and in the regular season we can't beat him. He's .929 save percentage, 7-4-1, only a little over a shade of 2 goals against. But then you get into the playoffs, that series they had 2 years ago, and the Penguins were the only team that made him look human. The problem for us was we had Louis Domingue on the other end who couldn't stop a beach ball with a tennis racket that series. So it didn't really matter how well we did against Shesterkin. But yeah, I think this will be a fun goaltending matchup to watch, just because this is, I said it to Hunter yesterday on our start of the week episode. This isn't a must win for the Penguins, but it's about as close as it gets because it's the first real Metro test they've had all season. And this is a team you're chasing and could see, in April. So you want to make something out of this matchup.
First real Metro test. That's interesting how you put it that way, Pat, because I know they play the Devils and the Hurricanes, who are also very good as well. But I think I understand what you're saying in that context as well. I mean, the Penguins, they've been okay against Metro teams so far this season. I mean, they beat Columbus, they beat Washington, who is off to a surprisingly good start. I don't think that's going to last, in my opinion. But, the losses to the Devils, who are just a bit faster. The Penguins have had a big problem with the Devils for the past couple of years. And the Hurricanes, we said it on Monday's show, always a 50-50 with them. And the bounces just go their way every single time. Rangers, the Penguins split the 4 meetings with them last year. They won both games in Pittsburgh. Then, of course, Sean, you guys won both games at Madison Square Garden. Jarry versus Shesterkin has always been a fun matchup, I feel like. They played some pretty good games against each other, especially during the regular season. The one that really stands out to me a couple seasons ago before they played in the playoffs, it was that 1-0 game in Pittsburgh. I believe it was a weekend game. And the deciding goal was an Evgeny Malkin power play. It was like the only penalty that was called in the game. And both goalies were just going at it, dueling each other. It was a really fun game to watch, even though it was a no-score game for a while before Malkin scored. And I'm not saying we're going to get that in this one, but all I'm saying is that they have the ability to play at that level for long periods of time. So they've had some really fun matchups against each other. And as much as I do, Penguins fans are going to be trying to get under Shesterkin's skin in this one at PPG Paints Arena. But this should be a lot of fun, man. I'm super excited.
I'll be there and I'll cheer against them. I'm trying
to remember who it was, but there was somebody, I think it was like a baseball player or something, that said they don't boo nobodies. So when the opposing crowd is like mock cheering your name, I think you've made it at that point. So we'll see what happens. Games 3 and 4 in the playoffs a couple of years ago. Obviously, Igor didn't have it. They were doing that chant. He got pulled out of both those games. They tried it again in game 6, and he did quite a bit better in that one. But yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. Always a fun environment, and these two fan bases, that they tend to go back and forth a little bit. And anytime it's Rangers Penguins, whichever barn it's in, it's going to be a very electric atmosphere, and I'm sure it's going to be the same here. So I figure in just a second we'll go ahead, talk about maybe like some under the radar players to watch, and get into some predictions as well. First, though, would you guys like to let everyone know about our other sponsor for today, eBay Motors?
Yeah, so passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you'll get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, and eBay Guarantee Fit is only available to U.S. customers.
All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and keep everything rolling here. And guys, one of my favorite questions anytime we do these crossover episodes, whether it's with you guys or anybody else, and Hunter, I know we've done this question before, but I always like to ask, any under the radar players to watch in this game? Because obviously, we know about Crosby and Malkin, and you guys know about Panarin and Kreider and all the big names, but who's been impressing you lately, and who's somebody that could be a threat to impact this game for the Penguins?
Well, I'm going to say Marcus Pettersson, actually. Not going to do a lot offensively, maybe, but defensively, he has been a workhorse this season. His pairing with Erik Karlsson has been one of the best pairings in the league, both eye test-wise and analytically. They are super fun to watch when they're on the ice. I wouldn't call Pettersson Karlsson's babysitter, but he does do a really sound job of just getting the puck out of the defensive zone and just being that stable presence for him on the blue line. He continues to be, I think, one of the more underrated defensemen in the league. And I think his play this season has kind of gone a little under the radar for a lot of Penguins fans. I would definitely have my eye on him from a defensive standpoint. I guess if you want someone who can maybe bring a little more offense compared to Pettersson, I may say keep your eye on, I know what, I'll go Lars Eller, actually. I've really liked his game as of late. Ever since that West Coast trip, he scored that gorgeous goal against the Kings, just dusted Kevin Fiala, Andrew Doughty on this shorthanded rush. Ever since then, I feel like he's really grown into his role with the Penguins, and he's continued to get chances. The puck hasn't gone in the net just yet since that game, but he's been playing really well. So I would keep my eye on him as well.
The guy that I have been thoroughly impressed with this season, and I've said it to Hunter before, is while the Karlsson deal is going to get all the headlines and all the hype, the guy to watch in Pittsburgh this year is Riley Smith.
Yeah.
Because he has been lighting up the score sheet, and I haven't seen a winger have this kind of chemistry with Evgeny Malkin since James Neal. And if you remember Evgeny Malkin's MVP season about a decade ago, it was because he had James Neal riding shotgun with him, and they fed off each other so well. And that's exactly what Riley Smith has done with Evgeny Malkin, and all they got that guy for was a third-round pick. So that's a big one for me. The other one I want to see against the Rangers step up and play a solid game, similar to what Hunter said, is Ryan Graves. He's had a bit of a mixed start in Pittsburgh. But that's because he's, maybe the third or fourth defenseman behind Chris Letang, Marcus Pettersson, and Erik Karlsson, but they did spend a good bit of money to get him. And while he hasn't been bad, he also hasn't been good. So I'd like to see him kind of have a standout game against one of, if not the best team in the Metro right now.
Yeah, for sure. And if I'll throw out a couple as well. I got to go with Erik Gustafsson just because I've been heaping a lot of praise on him really ever since the season started. The Rangers picked him up, kind of an under-the-radar free agent move. The Rangers, like a lot of teams, do not have a ton of cap space, to put it mildly. So they had to kind of go bargain hunting. this offseason, and what a pickup this guy has been. He's on like his 8th team in the past 5 years or something ridiculous like that. And I'm watching him play, and I can't figure out why this guy can't find a home, because he has really stepped up big for the Rangers. Obviously, with Adam Fox out of the lineup, that creates an enormous hole in your lineup, and they've moved Gustafsson from the third pairing up to play with Ryan Lindgren, and he's done a great job there, done a great job on the power play as well. He's quarterbacking the top power play unit, and they haven't really missed a beat since Adam Fox went down, the power play, that is. And there's no substitute for Adam Fox, but Erik Gustafsson doing as much as he possibly can to make that hurt as little as possible. And I've mentioned this too, for somebody that has a reputation as kind of an offensive defenseman, and I get why, he does kind of put up points, but he's made some great defensive plays this season as well. There have been a couple times where there's been a rush, an odd man rush, and he's made a nice play, or maybe even there's about to be a breakaway and he'll catch up to the guy and knock the puck away from him. There was a game not too long ago where he steals the puck behind the Ranger net, passes up the ice, and the Rangers are going the other way, and then they score on a rush. So cannot say enough about the job that he's done. The only downside to this whole thing is that a lot of Ranger fans are saying, oh, re-sign him. It's like, dude, Gustafsson is not going to have to settle if he keeps playing like this for just $825K in 1 year next year. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I'll throw out Gustafsson, and also your old friend, I'm going to throw out Nick Bonino. Obviously another under the radar pickup for the Rangers, and now 2/3 of the HBK line has now played on the Rangers, but he's done a great job in his role. He's one of those players that he's a veteran. Obviously, there's not a whole lot there these days offensively. I believe he only has 1 assist the entire season, but an excellent penalty killer, block shot machine, and just a hard-nosed player. And we've all kind of been hinting, I think, that maybe we're expecting this to be a little bit on the low-scoring end, and I just get the feeling that, both teams have good power plays. Nick Bonino, I think, winning some faceoffs while his team is shorthanded and killing the actual penalty, that could be huge for the Rangers in this game. So give me Gustafsson and Bonino as my 2 kind of under-the-radar players that could impact this game in a positive way for the Rangers.
That makes sense as well. And I did want to ask you, John, with the Rangers off to this crazy hot start under Peter Laviolette, what do you think has been the biggest difference for this team compared to last year's team under Gallant?
Yeah, I think overall it's probably just they're playing a better defensive structure, that they're maintaining defensive structure a lot better now than they did in the past. They're kind of running this 1-3-1 defense, and it was very apparent right even from opening night. They went into Buffalo, and a team that is slowly but surely getting a little bit better. They've got some talented players, and they won 5-1, and they just shut them down. And Buffalo just didn't seem to have any idea, how to attack this team or how to get through the neutral zone. It feels like they're just much more structured than they used to be. And I think the other thing that's kind of working in their favor right now is they've kind of embraced this next man up mentality. I mentioned, Erik Gustafsson stepping up for Adam Fox. We've also got a situation right now where Philip Hedl is out with a concussion, and nobody seems to know when he's going to be back. And as I've been saying on my show, all the best to him. Obviously get healthy first. That's first and foremost before hockey. But he goes down, and then Vincent Trocheck steps from the third line into the second line. And I'm trying to remember if he had any points last night. I don't think he did. But in the 5 games that he played with Panarin and Lafreniere, he had a 5-game point streak and 10 points overall. So he really stepped up in place of Philip Hedl. And that line's been on fire. Panarin and now Trocheck and Lafreniere, they've kind of been carrying the team offensively 5v5. And then Igor, he missed some time as well. And Jonathan Quick, partying like it's 2012 and really turning back the clock. And not just giving the Rangers a chance, but Quick in a lot of those games that he started was one of the biggest reasons why they won those games. And even your old pal Louis Domingue, he got into a game as well because Igor and Quick were actually both out of the lineup on the same night. So Domingue got in there, only allowed 1 goal and led the Rangers to a win. So, yeah, I think it's just kind of that next man up mentality. They seem to have all embraced it. And I'm just very impressed with how fast this team has kind of picked up Laviolette's system and embraced his system. I thought there'd be some growing pains. And, I guess here and there have been. But you look at their record and how well they've started, it feels like everything's clicking pretty quickly here.
He gets results pretty quick when he goes to new teams. You saw it in Philadelphia. You've seen it in Nashville. Heck, even his first year in Washington, Pat and I were discussing this on a Monday show. He did pretty well there before the wheels started to turn a bit sideways. I don't think he's a coach that's probably going to be with the Rangers long-term, John, but he's definitely good in terms of the short-term to get results. And he's showing that so far with how good the Rangers have been. Because, again, I thought the Rangers were definitely going to be a playoff team this year. I thought the Penguins would be kind of in contention for that third spot. I did not think the Rangers would be this far ahead for the number one spot in the Metropolitan Division. That's for sure. You guys have been on absolute fire. Artemi Panarin's been great. Chris Kreider continues to score goals, and he's always been a Penguin killer throughout his career. I think the biggest thing the Rangers probably have to do at some point is get Mika Zibanejad going. I've seen him struggle a little bit this year, Johns, which is, I wouldn't say concerning, but he's got to, I think, wake up sooner rather than later with how his slow start's gone.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'd be more concerned if he didn't already have such a proven track record.
Right.
Right now he's just a little bit off. The game last night he really struggled, and pretty basic passes are kind of bouncing off of his stick, and it's like, what's going on? We also know how lethal he can be, especially on the power play when it comes to that one-timer. And when he's taking the one-timer now, it just feels like he doesn't know where it's going. Like, he can't even hit the net. He can't even put it on net, much less score. So I think he'll eventually figure it out. I know some people are talking about splitting up Mika and Kreider, which is an option. But if you do that, the one line that I think should be untouchable right now, because it's carrying the Rangers at 5v5, is Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere. I think you have to leave those three together. And then your options kind of become limited. Will Cooley is a second-round rookie who's played pretty well for the Rangers. You could flip-flop him and Kreider if you want to. But the nice thing here is that even though Mika and even Kreider to an extent are struggling a little bit 5v5, this start that they're off to, you can afford to be patient. It's not like they're down in the standings and, oh my God, the season's getting away from us. They can kind of let them work through this and figure it out. So it's a nice luxury to have. And it's also nice that they've won as many games as they have, even without some of their best players playing like their best players.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me with the Rangers coming into this season, because I was right there with Hunter, kind of thinking that it would be the Penguins and Rangers kind of battling it out for third or first wild card through this season. But the biggest thing for me with them was when it became apparent that Igor was going to miss time early, we were going to see what this team was made of. Are they deeper than just a great goalie? Because if scoring has been the Penguins' hallmark forever, the Rangers' hallmark for at least the last 30 years has been great goaltending. So the fact that they passed that with flying colors, you look at this team now, and if I'm any sort of analyst looking at the Metro, I'm going, man, New York might be the team, because they didn't just survive without Shesterkin. They thrived.
Yeah, in a really strange way. I feel like maybe, obviously, you don't want Igor to get hurt. You don't want anybody to get hurt. But in a way, that was almost like a call to arms, because it's like, all right, well, we can't get lazy. We can't turn the puck over in our own zone. We don't have Igor back there to bail us out every time we have a miscue. So I think they just kind of tighten things up. And like I said, Jonathan Quick did a heck of a job while he was in there. But I think it also kind of got the Rangers to just kind of bear down a little bit defensively throughout that entire stretch that Igor wasn't there. Do we want to go ahead and toss out some predictions for this game? Final score, somebody to get a goal, or anything else you guys want to do here before we call it?
I feel like I've been pretty good with my predictions, haven't I, lately, Pat? I feel like
You've been on a nice little roll, so I'll let you cook.
I'll try to cook here a little bit. I think you are going to see a vintage Sidney Crosby game in this one. He has just been tremendous so far this season. You know how much he loves playing the Rangers, both of you. I mean, he has cooked them throughout his career, to be honest. I'm not going to sit here and say there's going to be like a 5-point night or anything like that, but I do think you're going to see a multi-point night for him, whether it's 2 or 3 points. I think one of those points will be a big goal that he scores in this one. I think Sid, after a little more of a quieter night against Vegas, he had his 11-game point streak snapped. You're going to see him get right back into another point streak for this one. I think he's going to play really well. Not going to give a final score prediction. Those usually go wrong when I do those, but I am going to sit here and say that Sid is going to play really well in this one.
I think this is going to be a 3-2 final with special teams making a big difference, like we talked about. I think it's going to be 3-2 Pittsburgh. I think the Penguins are feeling themselves a little bit right now. They want to make a statement. And the biggest thing for me is I think that it's not going to be 90s level, but this might get a little ugly, because these teams genuinely have developed a dislike of one another because of the playoffs and because of the last couple of years. Right. And I have said this to our friends on Locked On Flyers, and I'll say it here to Locked On New York Rangers as well. Hockey is better when the Penguins and Rangers have a legitimate rivalry, because since the late 80s and up until today, it has been a really good, really fun rivalry. So I think we're in for a 3-2 slugfest where the Penguins come out victorious and the power play is going to make a difference.
So it's funny. I actually did an episode during the offseason. We were getting to kind of, I guess you could say, the slower parts of the NHL calendar. I did a top 5, greatest Ranger rivals right now, and I put the Penguins at number 1. And there's some old school Ranger fans that'll always kind of fight me on this. Oh, it's always the Islanders. No matter what happens, it will always be the Islanders. But when the Islanders were winning the Cup, I wasn't even alive for that, so I didn't have to suffer through all that like some old school Ranger fans did. But you watch the way this has gone the last few years, and to your point, Patrick, what you just said, there's a genuine dislike between these teams. I remember a few years ago, before they met in the playoffs, it was the last regular season matchup, and the Rangers won that game. But remember, they had that crazy standoff after the game ended at the red line, and I'm thinking, dude, is there about to be like a 20-on-20 brawl here? Like it was getting ugly, and I think we could see some of that in this game. If it doesn't happen in this game, it'll certainly get ugly by the second time these two teams play each other this season. But I was torn between 3-2 Rangers and 2-1 Rangers. I'll go 2-1 because I feel like I've been using 3-2 a little bit lately. I think both goalies are going to be at the top of their game. They seem to bring out the best in each other. I think we're going to see some really nice saves. And as far as the game winner, Panarin just had his 15-game point streak snapped in the last one. So let's say Lafreniere to Panarin for the game winner. 2-1 Rangers pulling it out in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I guess I'll give 1-2. I'll go 4-3 Penguins. It's probably going to age like milk, but you know what? That's okay. These games are always so much fun, man. I have so many good friends that are Rangers fans. John, you're obviously one of them. And this rivalry has really taken quite the turn over the last couple of years. I always knew that the Penguins and Rangers were pretty big rivals, but I think right now the Rangers are the Penguins' biggest rivals. It always kind of changes as the years have gone on, right? First time it was the Flyers, especially in 2012. Then it went to Washington with all those playoff series. That one's kind of taken a back seat. Now with the playoff series, everything involving Jacob Trouba and just Penguins Rangers in general, it's definitely, I think, the Rangers at the top of a lot of Penguins fans' lists right now.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's interesting hearing you say that because, for a while, Rangers and Capitals really picked up quite a bit. I mean, they met each other like 5 straight years in the playoffs or something like that. And every time those two teams play each other, I mean, we're getting multiple overtime playoff games and playoff overtimes that go to the third overtime and game 6, game 7, game 7 overtime. It's wild and back and forth the whole way. And that's kind of taken a little bit of a back seat because they haven't seen each other in the playoffs in a while. But yeah, I mean, Rangers, Penguins, the intensity is always there. The passion's always there. And Ranger fans and Penguin fans, let's try to be like somewhat civil to each other. Let's do our best here. Some lighthearted smack talk is all good, but let's try to keep the gloves up. I think you guys would echo those sentiments.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can't get as nasty as it did during the playoff series. That was unbelievable.
That series needed to end one way or the other. That series needed to end.
Yes.
But yeah, I figure we could pretty much call it there. But guys, it's a ton of fun as it always is. And I figure we can do this again when these teams play each other again somewhere down the road here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Sounds good. So Ranger fans, Penguin fans, thank you guys as always. And we'll see you next time.